Have you ever started telling a story in English, and halfway through, you just saw everyone's eyes glaze over?
Or worse, you couldn't find the words, so you just kept repeating, and then, and then, and then, until the silence became deafening and everyone quietly looked at their phones?
Yeah, that feeling. One single word is all it takes to kill a perfectly good story. But not anymore. Today, we fix that.
Welcome to Mr. and Mrs. Oxford. I'm Hazel.
And I'm JD. And if you've been listening to us for a while, you know this episode has been coming. For weeks.
It has! We've been teasing this one, building up the anticipation.
Building it up since, I believe, episode 9. I have the receipts, Hazel.
That's a slight exaggeration. The point is, this is the one you've been waiting for. Today, we're diving deep into storytelling in English. How to actually tell a story that people want to listen to, from start to finish, in English.
And this isn't just for grand adventures. This matters whether you're telling a funny anecdote at work, explaining what happened to you on holiday, or just chatting with friends and trying not to lose them halfway through the narrative.
Storytelling is one of the most fundamentally human things we do. And in a second language, it can feel incredibly hard. Because when you're searching for words, when you're stumbling, the story dies. The energy just drains away.
So we're going to give you the secret sauce. Real phrases, real structure, real examples. And, as is tradition on this podcast, some real disagreement between the two of us about what actually counts as a good story.
There's going to be one particular story JD tells today that I
Don't.
find deeply questionable as a storytelling choice. But we'll get to it.
We'll get there. First, structure.
Every single story, in any language, has the same basic skeleton. You have a setup, a complication, and a resolution. That's it. 3 parts. Even the most complex film you've ever watched uses these 3 core elements.
The setup. That's the who, the where, the when. The complication. Something goes wrong. Something unexpected happens. Something changes. And the resolution. How it ends. What you learned. What the feeling is. Simple.
Now, in English, native speakers do something really specific in the setup. They use what we call scene-setting phrases to pull you in immediately, to paint a picture in your mind, even though you can't see anything.
Exactly. So instead of just saying, I was at the supermarket, a native speaker might say, so, picture this. It's a Tuesday morning, it's absolutely pouring with rain, and I am standing in the cereal aisle, still in my pajamas.
See? That's a setup. Picture this is one of the most useful storytelling phrases in English. It signals to the listener, I'm about to take you somewhere, pay attention.
Other setup phrases that native speakers use constantly. So this actually happened, which immediately tells the listener, this is real, this is worth your time.
You're not going to believe this. Huge. That one builds expectation before you've even started speaking the actual story.
Right. So, you know how, sometimes, that one's interesting, because it invites the listener to relate to the situation before the story begins. You're creating connection, finding common ground.
It was one of those days where, classic, sets a mood instantly, gives you a feeling for the whole day.
And my personal favorite. Okay. So bear with me on this one, which I use when I know the story is going to be slightly complicated to explain, and I'm practically pre-apologizing for it.
You use that one a lot, I've noticed.
I do use that one a lot, yes, it helps.
Okay, so we have setup phrases. Now let's talk about something that learners almost always get wrong, and it is tense.
Oh, this is a big one. This changes everything.
In storytelling, and this is going to feel counterintuitive, native speakers often switch to the present tense when telling a story from the past. It's called the narrative present, or the historic present, and it makes stories feel immediate, dramatic, and alive. Like you're right there.
So instead of, he walked in, and he looked furious. You'd say, he walks in. He looks furious. Present tense, even though it happened yesterday or 3 years ago.
It's a bit like you're replaying the film as you tell it. You're in the story. You're not just reporting it from a distance.
Huge difference in energy. Try it with your own stories. When you switch to the present tense, people literally lean in.
Now, the complication. This is where most learner stories fall apart. Not because they don't have a complication, they always do, but because they can't signal it.
The complication is the turn, the moment where something shifts. And in English, native speakers signal that turn with specific phrases so the listener knows, here it comes, something's about to change.
The big one, and then, out of nowhere.
Brilliant phrase. Signals surprise, a sudden shift, drama. And then out of nowhere, he just turns around and says,
That's when things got interesting. Slightly understated. Very British, actually.
very British. Things are never catastrophic in British English. They just get a bit much, or rather complicated.
And that's when I realized, is a fantastic one. Because it marks the emotional turning point of the story, not just the practical one. It's a moment of clarity.
Long story short, which, we both know, never means the story is actually going to be short.
Never. When someone says long story short, you settle in, because you're about to hear everything.
To cut a long story short, same thing, British version.
And, anyway, which can do so much work in a story. It can skip over boring bits. It can pivot. It can signal, I'm coming to the point now, I promise.
Native speakers use anyway as a storytelling shortcut constantly. It's like a remote control. You fast forward past the bit that doesn't matter and zoom right to the good stuff.
Okay, I want to do a demonstration now. Because we've been talking about storytelling, but you need to hear it in action. JD, tell the story.
Which one?
You know which one.
The airport one?
The airport one. The legendary one.
Right. Okay. Bear with me on this one. So, picture this. It is 6 in the morning. I am at Heathrow, Terminal 2. I've got about 40 minutes before my gate closes, and I am, and this is relevant, very, very hungry. Like, proper ravenous.
He was hungry. This is important context, apparently.
So I find a cafe. I order a full English breakfast. Beans, eggs, sausages, bacon, the lot. I sit down. I start eating. And everything is fine. Perfect. And then, out of nowhere, I look up and I see the departure board. My flight. It has changed gates dramatically.
This is the complication.
This is the complication. So I have, by my estimate, about 11 minutes to get from where I am to the new gate, which, in Heathrow Terminal 2, might as well be a different postcode, a different country. So I look at my half-eaten breakfast. I look at the board, and I make a decision, a vital decision.
He made a decision.
I took the sausages with me. I bolted through the airport, full sprint, carry-on luggage bouncing off my back, one hand gripping the handle, with 2 hot sausages clutched in a napkin in the other hand. I made the gate. I made my flight. I ate the sausages on the jet bridge triumphantly.
And that, apparently, is the resolution.
I made my flight. I finished my breakfast. Everybody won. It was a perfect story.
I have heard this story. I want to be clear. Probably 40 times. And every single time, the sausages get more dramatic, more heroic.
They were good sausages, Hazel. They deserve to be saved.
They are now legendary sausages. When he first told me this story, they were just sausages.
The story has matured with age, like a fine wine.
Okay. But genuinely, did you notice what JD did there? He used picture this to set the scene. He gave us specific details. 6 in the morning, Terminal 2, ravenous hunger. Not just, I was at the airport. Specific, vivid details create pictures in your mind.
He used, and then out of nowhere, to signal the complication. The sudden, unexpected gate change. And then that decision moment. I looked at the breakfast. I looked at the board, which creates real tension, makes you wonder what comes next, before the resolution.
The best stories have a decision moment, where the main character, in this case, JD and his sausages, has to choose between two things. That is the engine of every single story ever told.
In English, you can signal a decision moment really simply. So, I had a choice. I had two options. And in that moment, I had to decide. These phrases hold the listener. They make people want to know what comes next, what the outcome was.
Now, let's talk about endings. Because this is where learner stories often just trail off. They reach the end and they don't know how to land it, how to wrap it up neatly.
Landing a story is absolutely a skill. In English, native speakers usually do one of three things at the end of a story. They either hit you with the punchline, the funny, or surprising conclusion. They give you the emotional takeaway, what the story meant. Or they invite the listener in with a question.
And the moral of the story is a classic ending phrase. A bit formal, but it works. You can also use it ironically. And the moral of the story is, always eat your breakfast before you check the departure board.
So yeah, that happened. Which is a very casual, slightly self-deprecating way to end. It says, I know this story was a lot. I'm okay with that. You can laugh now.
And that's when I knew is a lovely one for more emotional stories. And that's when I knew I was in the right place. And that's when I knew things were going to be okay. It's a moment of internal realization.
Anyway, lesson learned. Quick, punchy done. No need to linger.
I still think about it. For stories that you want to leave with some weight, some resonance. It signals the story had meaning beyond the moment it occurred.
And honestly, a story doesn't always need a neat, tidy ending. Sometimes, the best stories end in ambiguity. And to this day, I have no idea what happened. That's a great ending, because it gives the listener something to sit with, something to wonder about.
Okay, quick recap, because we've covered a lot. 3 parts of every story. Setup, complication, resolution. Setup phrases. Picture this. You're not going to believe this. So this actually happened. Complication signals. Out of nowhere. That's when things got interesting. And that's when I realized. Resolution and endings. Decision moments, punchlines, emotional takeaways. So yeah, that happened.
And don't forget the tense trick. Try the narrative present. Tell your past stories in the present tense and feel the immediate difference in energy.
One more thing before we get to your challenge. And this is something that I think separates a good story from a great one in English. Reaction phrases.
Oh, yes, crucial.
When you are the listener in a conversation, the phrases you use to react keep the story alive. If you are learning English, these are as important as the story phrases themselves, because they show engagement. They tell the speaker, I'm with you, I'm listening, keep going.
No way. Shock, disbelief, but interested. Keep going.
And then what? The best 4 words in English if you want someone to continue a story. Guaranteed to get them talking.
Shut up. Which, I know, sounds rude, but in British and American casual English, shut up, as a reaction, means, I cannot believe this. It's pure surprise, pure astonishment.
Use that one carefully with people you don't know well. Read the room.
Extremely carefully, context dependent.
Seriously? One of the most versatile reaction words in English. Works for shock, disbelief, comedy, sympathy. Your tone does all the work.
What did you do? Brilliant, because it immediately puts the speaker back in the driving seat, demanding the next piece of action.
And I can't believe that. Simple, warm, it validates the story. It says, yes, that was remarkable. Your feelings about it are completely correct.
Right. Now, your weekly listener challenge.
This week, we're not just asking you to practice storytelling, we're asking you to reveal a story. Think about your week or your day. What's one tiny, funny, frustrating, or completely unexpected moment that happened to you? The one that, if you told it to a friend, they'd lean in and say, "No way," or, "And then what?"
That's the story we want. It doesn't have to be a big, dramatic saga. Maybe you spilled your coffee in a spectacular way. Maybe you missed your bus by 2 seconds. Something slightly went wrong. Those are actually the best stories, aren't they? The relatable ones.
We want you to tell that story. In English. In the comments. Use at least 2 of the phrases we gave you today. Start with one of the setup phrases. Use one complication signal. See how it feels to weave them in.
Don't worry about perfect grammar. Focus on the structure, the phrases, the shape of the story. That's what we're practicing this week. What's your story? We're genuinely excited to read every single one.
If you are watching this on YouTube, leave your story in the comments. We promise we read them all. And if you found this episode useful, and we really hope you did, please give it a like. It helps more learners find us, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.
Which brings us to next week. We are doing something that Hazel has wanted to do since episode 1. Literally.
Conversation fillers and thinking time phrases. This is the one. You know that feeling when you're speaking English, and you need a moment, a second to think, to collect your thoughts, and you don't know what to say while your brain catches up?
In your first language, you have a whole toolkit of sounds and phrases that buy you time. In English, you probably have, maybe and then silence, which feels enormous and terrifying.
Next week, we give you the full toolkit. The phrases that native speakers use every single day to think, to hold the floor, to sound confident and natural even when they're figuring out what they want to say.
It is one of the most immediately practical episodes we have done, I think. You will literally use these phrases the very next day.
Genuinely? Possibly the same day if you watch it in the morning?
From both of us, keep practicing, stay curious, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.